Well, hello, everybody. This is not intentional. This episode was not meant to sound like a Western. It really wasn't. But what the fuck, let's roll with it. Episode 183, folks. We're going to be talking about COVID-19. The real reason this has been going on so long, and it's not about saving lives or helping people, no. It's about power. It's about greed. It's about wealth. Making that money, folks. Money makes the world go round, and apparently it makes COVID-19 go around too. We're going to talk about it today, episode 183. I know it's been a while, guys. 2 weeks, 3 weeks I've been off, but things have been crazy as fuck. I've been so busy. I've been feeling like shit. I'm supposed to get a surgery for this hiatal hernia, and they delayed the surgery because of COVID. It's a long story, but this whole episode is going to talk about the BS we've all been going through and how Americans are sick and tired of COVID-19. You're one of them. I'm one of them. We're ready to wash our hands with it. So this is the recap. These are the revelations. We're going to keep going forward. Did you know I spent New Year's Eve in the ER? I had chest pains. That's right, folks. Chest pains. I need to de-stress. All right. I need some help with this. If anybody wants to teach my old ass how to stream properly, you know, with all that animation and all that bullshit, get a hold of me, James Lane at AmericanReveille.com, Reveille.com. I need help with production. Look, I'm about to invest a lot of money into certain things here, getting certain artwork done, screens done, animations done, but I really want to make sure I'm going in the right direction, so I need some help, somebody with a little experience to guide me in the right way. I feel like a fucking Indian's gonna come out with a bow and arrow and a tumbleweed and shit. Seriously, I feel like I should have waxed my mustache for this. Look, I picked this music like a minute before the show started. I'm going to start lowering it down here. Do-do-do-do-do. Anybody want some cacti? Anyway, look, I could use the help. All right, we need writers, we need bloggers, I need people to help me research information. This shit is a pain in the ass. So I've got people going, oh, where's all the podcasts? Why aren't there podcasts every day? I want a new American Reveille podcast every day. Hey, look, I want to make one every day, but I'm also working 50 hours a week. I'm trying to get a dissertation done by April. Shit's been busy. The stress is at maximum high. I'm going to do everything I can to get more out to you. But if you want to see more of what we're doing here, then help. If you've got the skill set, email me, James Lane at AmericanReveille.com. If you're just discovering what we do here, then please go to AmericanReveille.com, Reveille.com. I have to say it 1,000 times. Apparently people don't know how to spell Reveille, or I should have picked a better name. Either way, maybe I should get arnews.com taken care of, but I digress. Go to AmericanReveille.com, bookmark the page. I am censored all the time. People lose track of me. People can't find me. They don't show me in their browsers anymore. The algorithm skips right over American Reveille. So I need you to bookmark me. All right. And if you haven't already, go to the newsletter tab. It's right at the top. Take a look right here. If you're watching and not listening, I have the screen pulled up for you. This is our beautiful webpage right here. You see it at the top. American Reveille, the voice of the people shall not be restrained. The people, you and me. You go right to the top there. It says newsletter. Bam, you hit that. Look, it says it better than I could say it because I said it before. There will come a time when you cannot find me or my radio show due to big tech censorship. Don't get left behind in the dark. Don't get left behind in the dark. That's good advice from me to you. The best way to fight censorship and never miss an update is to sign up for my free online newsletter. You click the sign up button, boom, the little page comes up. You put your email, you put your first name, you do the CAPTCHA, you hit the join now button, and bam, you're a member of American Reveille. I send a newsletter out. You get little updates of some of the articles and podcasts that came out. Every month, I send out a transparency report, what I'm doing with the LLC, because American Reveille is an LLC and it's a trademark name. We are trying to do something nationally. So by signing up, you get to see where the hell we are. And if you feel so compelled, you can also donate right here at the top. You hit the donate tab, boom. And there's a little thing here where you can donate through PayPal. And if you're into crypto, you don't want people tracking your money, you think the feds are looking into everything, hey, I'm cool with that too. You can go right to your email, jameslane@americanreveille.com, and I can give you an address to any cryptocurrency you want. You want to send me Bitcoin, Dogecoin, SafeMoon. You want to send me Monero. You want to send me Hedera Hashgraph. You want to send me Chainlink. I don't give a what. Just email me and you can send it to me. Trust me. I take whatever I can get. We're trying to build it up. And in this world of censorship, this hellscape that makes it unforgivable, that makes it nearly impossible for any of us to be heard, anything helps, and we'll take what we can get. Really, I appreciate it. So please, help wanted, donations wanted. We have needs in this business, but we are doing our best to spread the truth from the mouths of patriots like you and I to everybody we can. The masses are waking up, folks. The masses are waking up. All right. And speaking of waking up, I was in two different places on business. I was in Chicago. All right. And I was also in Idaho. I was in them both for about a week each. I drove to Idaho. The drive back through the snow was kind of hellacious, but it was very pretty. Nonetheless, all right, in Idaho, nobody cared about masks. In Idaho, nobody cared about vaccines. In Idaho, people were out, people were socializing. Everybody was having a great time. Chicago was like a barren wasteland. It was crazy. Chicago made me feel uncomfortable. It made me feel like I was in a third world country. I didn't even feel like I was in America. All right. People are waking up. You've got red states with people not even giving a crap about COVID anymore because they realize that everything they've been told has been a lie. And you know it. And I know it. All right. The key is the money. That's all that matters. The pharmaceutical companies are making millions and millions and millions of fucking dollars every day. You know it. I know it. It's the truth. And what do we have a pandemic of? We have a pandemic of cowardice. All right. Sane people are over COVID. All right. It has nothing to do with saving lives. Like I said, it has to do with power. It has to do with greed. It has to do with wealth. All right, folks, it has to do with wealth. Plain and simple. All right. So what are we going to talk about in this episode? What are we going to talk about? Well, that's plain and simple. We've got the 2021 COVID-19 recap. All right. It's going to be talking about the people vaccinated, the people that have died, what we've gone through and what the Biden administration has done so far. We're going to talk a little bit about what the FDA thinks about COVID booster shots for children. All right. We're going to talk about Ron DeSantis. We're going to talk about the purchase of monoclonal antibody treatments and other things, how the government's been blocking states from actually treating people. All right, just so they could prop up vaccine profits. This goes down a very dark road, folks. We're going to talk about Dr. Robert Malone. All right, we're going to talk about Dr. Robert Malone. He was talking to Joe Rogan, what they talk about mass formation psychosis. You've heard the word rolling around. We're going to look at it a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about Rogan getting the F off of Twitter. All right. And creating a safe haven on the new platform Getter. But I'm going to take it a little beyond that because the Truth platform, Donald Trump's Truth platform, is coming right out. All right. Looking at that past, you've got the Pfizer board members talking about cloth masks not providing protection against the China virus. We know that to be a fact. All right. We know they've been bullshitting us. It's actually insane and hilarious at the same time to watch so many people panicking about wearing masks. And wherever you're listening or watching this from, okay, there are people in all different parts of this country. It's America. It's a huge country that react differently to this. You have people that are screaming, panic, terrified at the top of their lungs just because somebody comes near them without a mask, and other people who don't even give a shit. You've got people at the far extremes and people right at the in-betweens. But all in all, cloth masks don't matter. All right. That is a fact. So if none of this matters, if everything's been bullshit, if the CDC keeps changing what it's saying, if everything keeps going back and forth and we have no idea who to believe and who to trust, what is the actual issue? What's the key? Where is the smoking gun? Well, then there's something here that I found, this nice little article that says how the COVID-19 vaccine injected billions into big pharma and made its executives very rich. So we're going to talk all about how much money the people in charge of these pharmaceutical companies made. We're going to trace that money a little bit because it looks like Fauci has millions invested into Chinese companies. All right. It looks like all of the people that we were supposed to trust are profiting off of this. How are we supposed to believe these organizations, these government agencies, these bureaucrats when they're lining their pockets? And in the first of many blows to the Biden administration and these rich elites and their plans for global domination, the Supreme Court struck down Biden's OSHA mandate 6-3, and that will be the first of many. All right. And obviously, we're going to finish this on a high note. We're going to come to a close where I think this narrative needs to take us, what I believe is the truth. And this article says the Omicron variant may end up saving lives, because that's what I believe. We've got this variant going around. All right. It's highly contagious. Nobody seems to die from it. Nobody goes to the hospital from it. All right. People with horrible comorbidities might have an issue. And I'm sorry for them. And this is a terrible thing. But at the end of the day, if everybody gets infected with the least deadly virus, doesn't that mean that everybody is safer? Doesn't that mean that everybody has better antibodies? Everybody's protected? That's what I believe. All right. The main point, the main gist we're going to get at, we're going to take a look back at 2021, but then we're going to zoom right forward into 2022, because the revelation, the truth that's going to come out of all of this is that it was all about the cashola. People made bazillions of dollars. Many lives were lost that didn't have to. There are dangers that we didn't know about that are soon to be revealed. And when 2022 hits at the end of November, when the midterms are taken back over, when 2024 rolls around and this country bleeds red once again, all of these people's heads are going to be put on the chopping block. All of these investigations that need to be taken place are going to be taken place. China will be held accountable. Fauci will be held accountable. All of these people, all right, need to be held accountable and need to be judged to the fullest extent of the law. And that's what's going to happen. All right. Plain and simple. That's what's going to happen. So with that being said, all right, folks, with that being said, I want to start looking at some of these articles. All right. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. You've got this 2021 COVID-19 recap. All right. It says 200 million vaccinated, 450,000 dead. Of course, nobody wants anybody to die. But at the end of the day, there is a pandemic. There was a virus released by agents in China, whether it was accidental, whether it was intentional, that's yet to be found out. But for it to actually, a pangolin to have flown 3,000 miles and, had sex with a bat in some freaking wet market in Wuhan, China, next to the Viral Institute, that's not very plausible. Somebody let this thing out the front door, all right? Let's do a little bit of reading. I would tell you who this is by, but I can't pronounce his name. With the turning of the calendar to a new year, speaking of which, Happy New Year, 2021 became the second year defined by the CCP, Chinese Communist Party virus pandemic, and the global response to it. Compared to 2020, last year was deadlier, but also more complicated. Issues such as virus variants, vaccine resistance, and vaccine efficacy have come to the forefront. Mandatory vaccination went from a conspiracy theory to official policy in a matter of months. You saw how quick that was. We all said it. It's coming. And all the naysayers said, nah, they'll never do that. They'll never force anything on anyone. This is the United States of America. Then all of a sudden, the tyranny hit. And then all the people that actually went with it, they're now being punished for going along with it. You'll hear more later in the episode, but there is punishment for those who went forth with getting their vaccine. Trust you, me. So it went from a conspiracy theory to an official policy. Increasingly prominent also were the legal battles over government restrictions on the population, with approaches taken by different states further diverging. While 2021 started with a massive wave of COVID-19 related hospitalizations, there also was an expectation that the pandemic would soon end or at least fade into the background. Vaccination was billed as the ticket to normalcy, and initially it looked that way. By mid-June, about 180 million Americans had received at least one dose of one approved vaccines, and even states with the most authoritarian approaches, such as New York, had lifted most of their restrictions, which we know now that was a Trojan horse, because as soon as the virus started fading, as soon as people started getting back to their normal lives, they ramped the panic back up, turned the panic up to 11, and fired everybody up once again with COVID fear. The restrictions soon came back to these blue areas. Let's keep reading. Delta. All right, the section's called Delta. However, the respite was brief. In July, infections began to spike again. The CCP virus mutated into a new variant dubbed Delta, which appeared to be less deadly but more infectious. Vaccine uptake slowed, and Delta appeared to be somewhat more resistant to it. The solution presented by authorities was to take yet another dose of the vaccine, a booster. That is the booster shot. That is what they did. Their thought was, well, maybe Delta will be cured. Maybe Delta will be held back if we just give people another jab. And what has been happening to a lot of people that have been getting these extra jabs? I'm not going to say it out loud. YouTube might ban me again. The virus also showed signs of seasonality. In the winter, it pummeled the Northeast, but not so much in the South. By summer, the situation seemed to reverse. And in August, President Joe Biden, plagued at the time by what was widely panned as a botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, announced a major policy shift. Mandatory vaccination for government workers, contractors, and even private employees with more than 100 employees. And we'll talk a little bit later about how the Supreme Court struck that down, and that's going to lead to a domino effect coming very, very soon to a theater near you. Just months earlier, the administration was dismissing the idea of vaccine mandates. Any suggestion that the government might force people to take the novel vaccine still in the process of long-term clinical trials was even ridiculed by some as a conspiracy theory. Soon after Biden's announcement, some Democratic-heavy states and localities followed with various mandates of their own, with New York City spearheading the effort bit by bit. New York had mandated the shot for government workers, private school staff, most indoor establishment workers, and even patrons of gyms, entertainment venues, and restaurants. To see a movie, exercise, or eat indoors, a New Yorker must show proof of full vaccination, which for now doesn't include boosters as well as photo ID. Outgoing Mayor Bill de Blasio also added a mandate for all private employers, and the state mandated the vaccine for all healthcare workers. And they thought they were getting a nice little rest there with a good new mayor coming in, somebody to replace Bill de Blasio, that former police guy. But then it turns out that he seems to be a piece of shit doing the same thing de Blasio was doing. So I don't know what to tell you. I guess these politicians think it's okay now to just BS their way into office. I know they've always been doing it, but at least before they used to have the courtesy of giving us all a reach around. At least before they would cradle the old testicles and tell you it would be okay and lie to your face. Now they're just like, yeah, we're fucking you. deal with it. That's what the politicians do. So I believe his name was Eric Adams. He came in there, and now he's just fucking the city too, just like de Blasio. So I don't know what to tell you. New York sucks, and it still sucks, apparently. It says legal challenges to the mandates have been a mixed bag of failures and partial victories. Often, courts would block the mandate only to later allow it to go into effect. Challenges to Biden's mandate for private employers and another for healthcare workers at facilities receiving Medicaid and Medicare funding are expected to be heard by the Supreme Court on January 7th. And I believe they were heard. I know the healthcare facility side of it is still standing from what I'm told. But the general OSHA mandate for businesses with 100 or above, that was struck down. Another phenomenon associated with Delta was an increase in severe illness and even deaths among children. While in 2020, about 0.05% of all COVID-19 deaths were among children, the number rose to 0.1% in 2021. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, making for a total of 678 deaths associated with COVID-19. For comparison, the agency recorded 358 pediatric deaths during the 2009 to 2010 flu pandemic. So now, where are we? We're on to the Omicron, which, by the way, the next one, from what I'm told, was supposed to be Xi. That's what it was supposed to be, the Xi variant. But the World Health Organization, they didn't want to offend China. Right? They didn't want to offend China. They pussied out and they just called it Omicron. All right. Again, not a pandemic of COVID, pandemic of cowards worldwide. Omicron, folks, with the winter approaching, about 50 million Americans got booster shots. If that was to give them a sense of security, however, it would be short-lived. Out of South Africa emerged yet a new variant capable of widespread named Omicron. There are indications that vaccines and, to a lesser extent, natural immunity acquired through previous infection only provide limited resistance to Omicron. On the other hand, the variant appears to be even more infectious, but again, much less lethal than Delta, with reports of much milder symptoms and far fewer deaths worldwide. The CDC estimates that Omicron comprised about half of COVID-19 infections in the week ending December 25th, 2021. Those are modeled projections, though, as data from its variant surveillance system lags by about 3 weeks. And from what I'm told, the number of Omicron cases has increased significantly, overtaking Delta by a lot. Omicron or not, hospitalizations attributed to COVID-19 have surged in the Northeast. New York Governor Kathy Hochul responded by again requiring people to wear masks indoor establishments, regardless of vaccination status. Who actually follows that? Do you actually wear masks indoors in places? You know what I'm noticing? People are sick and tired. I'm up here in the Washington state area, and we've got mask mandates everywhere because the governor here is a douche nozzle. And I'm telling you, you go into many establishments and nobody gives a shit anymore. You got to let me know in the comments section below. Tell me, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel you're listening or watching on. And if you're listening in the car, listening on the radio, listening on the internet, just do me a favor and try to use your imagination. All right, do something. Get online later and find this video version and hit the like button. But please, all right, please think about this. Republican-led states have generally gone in the opposite direction. Not only, all right, refraining from mandates, but sometimes even outlawing them. Florida went as far as expressly prohibiting local governments and school districts from imposing mask and vaccine mandates on their staff or in their facilities. The state, led by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, we all love Ron DeSantis, also restricted private businesses from imposing vaccine requirements by carving out a number of exemptions, including for health, concerns and prior infection. All right. And we've seen the results from both of these. We've seen how the Democrat-led states with the heavy lockdowns have suffered way more infections from COVID-19 than the much looser Republican states, especially Florida. Florida has done very well. Florida's legislature even authorized the state to ditch the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, and create its own agency to preempt Biden's vaccine mandate. All right, vaccine mandate, which OSHA should enforce. All right, so here is the information war. Last year was also marked by a number of revelations regarding what appears to be a lack of candor by a number of experts and public officials. And that's an understatement. They're plain out liars, brainwashing millions of Americans to believe a big lie coming from the Democrat Party, combined with the corporate media, combined with the big healthcare system. All right. All of these places, the pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, right? Everybody, the politicians, they're all in bed with each other. And it's right in our face. Social media companies, big tech, they're all lying to us. And we're not stupid. Like it's so offensive. It's so fucking offensive. They look down at us and just fucking spit on us like we don't realize that they're fucking us. Like they think we're dumb. It's just that we haven't figured out how to work together, how to somehow overturn what big tech does to us, because they control the internet. They control the whole thing. All right. We're all knuckle draggers trying to figure it out. All right. But don't think for 1 minute that we don't know. All right. Don't think for 1 minute that we're not sick and tired of getting screwed over by big tech. All right. It's just that they have a monopoly. They have a monopoly on everything. And in 2024 and in 2022, when we take everything back over, it's going to be time to break big tech up. They're all in cahoots. It's really fucking stupid. I'm getting off my soapbox and getting back to the article. A series of documents released under the Freedom of Information Act requests showed that a group of experts, including the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases head and White House medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, coordinated efforts to discredit the theory that the virus originally escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. The evidence, in fact, appears to lean in that direction, but Fauci et al. Have a personal stake in hiding those indications, since they were involved in financing or conducting dangerous gain-of-function experiments with coronavirus at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci explicitly denied to Congress that the NIH funded such research only for a growing stack of evidence to indicate otherwise. The information tug-of-war around potential therapeutics expanded last year. In addition to hydroxychloroquine, some doctors also tried off-label prescriptions of the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin. In one podcast episode, host Joe Rogan was both praised and vilified for taking ivermectin upon announcing that he tested positive for the virus. He then invited CNN's Sanjay Gupta on his show and criticized that network for claiming he took a horse dewormer, when in fact he had taken the human formulation of the drug as prescribed by his physician. And they should make it easier for us to get therapeutics, but let me let you all in on a little effing secret, all right? You may not realize this, just as many of you may not realize they're still working on the vaccine for the Delta variant. That's right, folks. We're all vaccinated if you are vaccinated for the original COVID variant. They're still testing the Delta variant. They're talking now about making an Omicron variant vaccine, all right? We're all going through the ringers for that stuff, all right? We're all going through the ringers. None of it is true. All right. None of it is actually helping. Maybe it helps some people. All right. I'm not saying that the vax doesn't help certain people in certain categories, but it is an untested thing. All right. It is not gone through trials long enough. It has not gone through the ringers for many years. One day there's going to be a 1-800 number flashing across the screen there. Did you take the COVID vaccine and now you have mesothelioma? Well, call 1-800 whatever the fuck to join this class action lawsuit so you could make $16 for them experimenting on you. Let me let you in on a little secret. If there are therapeutics, if there are things that treat the virus, then they can't get an emergency use authorization for a vaccine. That's right, folks. Then Big Pharma wouldn't get all of that sweet money that's been printed to inflate our economy and crash the whole thing down, because you can't build back better till you burn it all down. Maybe I should keep reading. Okay, anyway, let's go to the administration. The Biden administration's handling of the pandemic has been mixed. The administration managed a smooth rollout of the vaccines, but after the initial wave, the uptake has since slowed. Gallup reported in November, that the percentage of adults who are or plan to get vaccinated plateaued at 80%. By December 30th, more than 205 million people were fully vaccinated, meaning the completion of 2 shots of the Moderna, which causes blood clots apparently, or Pfizer vaccine, or 1 shot of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. More than 68 million people on top of all that got their boosters as well. A December poll by the Trafalgar Group found that a large majority of Americans, likely voters, opposed to new mandates and restrictions regardless of new variants. People are opposed. People are sick and tired of being guinea pigs. They're sick and tired of being jabbed. You know, I got my COVID vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but at the same time, I wouldn't have gotten it. All right. My dad died a few weeks after he got his vaccine. My mom got very sick after she got her vaccine. I had a terrible reaction, and I'm still recovering from when I got the vaccine. And I only got the vaccine because it was written into a court order. Okay. So what do you want? I had to do what I had to do, but the booster, I won't get it because I'm terrified that if I take a booster shot, maybe I'll have a heart attack like all these other people seem to be doing. Who knows why they're having heart attacks, but it seems to be very, very oddly close to getting a booster shot. After months, let's get back to the article. After months of promises to tackle the pandemic, Biden recently conceded that there's no federal solution to it. All right. Do you notice that? That's a big deal. He's been talking out of his ass for years. All right. It's like, look, before the campaign, right? Before the election, then after, then when he became the fake puppet president there, all of it. He's been talking out of his ass and lying to us. And then he just goes, oh, yeah, I can't do shit about it. State problem. Shouldn't there be outrage? Shouldn't there be pitchforks and torches in the streets? The reason we're not seeing that is because everybody gets different news. If you're not awake to that yet, well, Merry Christmas, man. Wake the F up. Everybody gets different news on their phone. All right. You get different news. Your grandma gets different news. Your buddy gets different news. Mike over there gets different news. His sister Sally gets different news. Jackie over there, she gets different news. We all get different news. They have us all by the fucking balls. All right. Unplug from the matrix. It's the only way. And I don't even know how we do that. The Biden administration's handling of the pandemic. The administration smoothed the rollouts of vaccines early on, but after the initial wave, the uptake has since slowed. Gallup reported in November, like I read, that the percentage of adults who are or plan to get vaccinated plateaued at 80%. By December 30th, more than 205 million people were fully vaccinated. All right. That's what I had said. And I told you that people, all right, 68 million of those people got boosters. And what did we say? The Trafalgar Group came out and they let us know the truth. All right. People are sick and tired. They don't want to be jabbed anymore. They don't want to be pin cushions. They don't want to be experimented on because this is an experimental vaccine. All right. This is an experimental vaccine. So what do we get for having an experimental vaccine? What do they get out of it? They get money. All right. They get to tell us what to do. They get to gain power. People that never ever thought they would have a face before, all of a sudden are famous. All of a sudden are rich beyond their wildest dreams. So what happens? What do? They start coming after our freedom, and then they start coming after our children. All right. You've seen it. You've seen in New York, in California, in Chicago, giving shots to kids all across the United States. Children as young as 5 years old are getting COVID shots. And what's happening to kids? Some kids are getting myocarditis. Some kids are dying. Some kids are okay, it seems. But why are we giving a shot to children when there's a virus that doesn't affect them? And somebody show me different. Somebody show me how this virus is truly affecting our children. All right? Tell me, explain to me, reason with me, sell me the reason why my children should be guinea pigs. Tell me. Nobody's made a convincing argument yet. All right? Biden's FDA approved COVID booster shots in children. All right? In children. And we just let it go on. It's okay. Why? Why is it okay? Why, when the science says they don't need it, do we need to do it? Why do we give in to the greed? Why do we say it's okay that Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna, why do they get billions of our dollars? Why do we go broke? Why do our house prices inflate to false highs? False highs that are just going to come crumbling down in a couple months when they start pumping the percentages up at the Fed. Why do we just allow them to run our lives? Why do we allow them to fuck with our children? All right? Why? I just don't get it. I'm giving you a simple question because people just expect us to fall in line. So I just want somebody to tell me why. All right. We've got critics questioning Biden's approval of these COVID boosters for children. They're saying it's a slap in the face of science. I'm telling you that the science says the kids don't need it. So the only plausible explanation I can come up with in my fucking little tiny pea brain is the money. All right. It's the money, the power, the greed, the wealth. All right. One health expert says it's unconscionable. How the hell do I even fucking say that word? One health expert says it's unconscionable. I suck. Unconscionable. I'm not even going to fuck that word. That the FDA's advisory panel is not being consulted on boosters. That's right. They're just giving the shot to our kids without checking if they even need it. It says President Biden is yet again facing backlash over the FDA's booster approval process, which recommended boosters for children this week without convening a panel of advisors to weigh in on the matter. Quote, "Dear President Biden, FDA is bypassing its scientific advisors to authorize boosters for all kids 12 to 15 next week. This is unconscionable." Fuck that word. "Undermines the integrity of the FDA's standard process. Please require FDA to put this authorize before the VRBPAC advisory com for a vote, ! Dr. Marty McCary, chief of the Johns Hopkins Islet Transplant Center and Fox News contributor. Now, I don't know much about the hospital system, but I know when I see the word Johns and Hopkins next to each other in a sentence, it's usually something important. All right. So this guy, all right, this guy is putting the argument forward, the proof right there in the pudding, so that when people come to you and say, but the FDA recommends this, you can say, shove the FDA up your ass. They don't even talk to doctors. And they say, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And then you go, okay, well, show me who they talk to. They can't produce anything. You can now produce this that actually says that the FDA says, fuck the smart people. Let's just figure it out on our own. It's like the movie Idiocracy coming to life. Look, the president right there. All right. If you're watching this, take a look at him in his face right there. If you've ever seen the movie Fire in the Sky, all right, the one where they're reenacting the alien abduction, he looks like the space alien. I wrote an article. I wrote a little blog about how people could possibly have been replaced by pod people and demons. And in that article, you know, I said intergalactic space slugs could have crawled up the nose of the people we once loved and cared for, who have now somehow been taken over by some liberal space demon. And looking into the dark, cold, dead eyes, lifeless eyes, like a doll's eyes of Joe Biden there, I start to believe that theory even more. Obviously, I don't believe that, but it was a good article. www.americanreveille.com or Reveille, and go down to the latest blogs. You'll find it. The Vaccine and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee. There's a lot of committees in the government with a lot of long names and a ton of acronyms, aren't there? Wow. They voted against giving the Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19's booster shots to most people back in September. It instead voted to limit boosters to those aged 65 and older, as well as to people at risk of severe illness, citing the lack of evidence showing the boosters being safe for younger people. And as you know where we are now, we've gone well beyond that. Oh, fuck. We're being asked to approve this as a 3-dose vaccine for people 16 years of age and older, without any clear evidence if the 3rd dose for a younger person, when compared to an elderly person, is of any value whatsoever. Committee member Paul Offit, Dr. Paul Offit, director of the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. See what I mean? Lots of long names, he said at the time. The controversy over boosters in the early fall was compounded when 2 FDA officials, the director of the FDA's Office of Vaccines Research and Review, Marion Gruber, and its deputy director, Phil Krause, resigned from the agency. The pair issued a scathing criticism of the widespread use of boosters in a piece published in The Lancet on September 13. I bet none of you have heard of it, which was co-authored by a handful of experts warning that, quote, current evidence does not appear to show a need for boosting in the general population in which efficacy against severe disease remains high. So why are we doing it? It's about the money, 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 money. By November, however, the FDA approved the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccine boosters for everyone 18 and older without input from the advisory committee. The agency said at the time that it did not convene its advisory panel because the committee had already discussed the use of boosters and the requests do not raise questions that would benefit from additional discussion. The New York Times reported on November 19th. The FDA approved the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine booster for 16 and 17-year-olds last month and broadened eligibility Monday to 12 to 15-year-olds. With the former FDA commissioner during the Trump administration, Scott Gottlieb, said during an appearance on Face the Nation Sunday that schools should not mandate boosters for children, noting that the durability of vaccines in 12 to 16-year-olds has been much more robust than we've seen in adults. He added that kids overall are at less risk from the infection, and Dr. Macquarie agrees. He says, quote, it's a slap in the face to science. And no, we don't mean Dr. Fauci, although we'd love to see Dr. Fauci slapped in the face. The U.S. FDA, to circumvent the standard convening of the Expert Advisory Board, FDA is quietly doing this because their experts previously voted it down, voicing concerns about medical harms. Macquarie, I keep seeing, because his name is Macquarie, M-A-K-A-R-Y, it looks like malarkey. Because I talk so much crap about President Joe Biden, I just want to call this guy malarkey, but his name is Macquarie. He tweeted that back Saturday, a couple Saturdays ago. Macquarie added in comment to Fox News on Monday that it's within Biden's jurisdiction to demand his FDA put the decision to a vote by the experts, as was done with other major FDA emergency use authorizations. So Biden's circumventing the whole process entirely, and he has the power to do something about it, and he's doing absolutely nothing because he doesn't give a shit about you. He's in the pocket of Big Pharma. Big Pharma and a lot of elites with a lot of money that like to pay for his son's drug habits. Dr. Mark Siegel, professor of medicine at the NYU Langone Medical Center and Fox News contributor, said he supports the advisory board taking up the issue because they need to figure out the utility of it. Quote, oh, wait, what happened here? I lost my spot. The whole thing moved and reset itself. You see, I need a producer. If anybody wants to do virtual production for me, you can email me, jameslane@AmericanReveille.com. Where were we? All right. I don't want anybody to be suggesting this vaccine or its boosters are unsafe for that group. That's wrong. And the purpose of convening the advisory committee is not to question safety. It's to question who should get it. If we start suggesting that this vaccine is unsafe, then we're playing into the hands of the anti-vaxxers who are filling hospitals. The New York Times reported on December 30th that some experts said that the Biden administration's focus on getting younger people boosters is misguided, and officials should instead work on vaccinating those who have not yet gotten the shots. Offit told the outlet that getting such shots to young Americans was focusing on the people who are already protected, which it is. And if we're running out of supplies, we have supply chain issues, we have testing issues, shortages everywhere, then why are we prioritizing people who don't actually need the shots? That makes a lot of sense, right? You need to question these things, folks. Tell me. Think about it. Think about that and tell me. Put it in the comments section below. It says, Republican Senator Rand Paul, who is also a physician, criticized the Biden administration on Twitter Sunday for the government ignoring its own rules to push booster vaccines on kids for a disease that is less deadly in children than the seasonal flu. Got that money, money, money. The power of money, folks. Makary argued in a Wall Street Journal op-ed published last month that booster mandates for young people will cause medical harm for the sake of transient reductions in mild and asymptomatic infections. He cited a December study by Oxford researchers that found young people suffered myocarditis, pericarditis, and arrhythmias more frequently from Moderna's vaccine than from COVID itself. So why are we pushing things that are more dangerous to people than the actual virus? I think it's because they are literally incompetent. It's not just evil and idiotic and out of literally out of control, but it's imbecilic. It's stupid. It's literally incompetent. I think our leaders are cowards. And they're literally stupid, and they make stupid decisions that lead to people dying. All right. It's not just the virus. It's the dumb asses in charge. Makary argued in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, all right, they're doing more harm. The vaccine is doing more harm than COVID itself, like I just said. Well, long-term cardiac effects of boosters in young people is, what do you know? Unknown. Like we said, it's unknown because there hasn't been a study that's gone on long enough. But trust me, we'll know. We'll know when we're all 60 years old, 70 years old, sitting in bed, and it's fucking 2 a.m. and we're watching hologram cable on fucking hologram ATTU-verse plus fucking bonus channel, and it's going, have you suffered a missing toe? Did your penis fall off because of the COVID-19 booster shot back in 2027? Well, call 1-800-644-2792 to earn your $6 and be part of a class action lawsuit and maybe get a ticket to get a ration of food from the Socialist Food Dispensary. This stuff is fucking ridiculous. Forcing immune, young, healthy, low-risk students to get a third vaccine shot is excessive and wasteful. These precious vaccine doses, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, should be going to poor countries that still don't have enough. The White House referred Fox News to the FDA when approached for comment on the concerns from health officials. The FDA directed Fox News later Monday to a press call where the director for the Center of Biologics Evaluation and Research, see what I mean? Very big names in these government agencies. And the FDA said the advisory board is called upon at the discretion of the FDA officials. Quote, the reason for not taking it on to our advisory group, we use our discretion when we bring things to the advisory group, when we feel like there's some question that is likely to actually need public discussion. We sometimes consult our advisory committee chairs to decide what questions to bring to the committee. He then explained that the increase in cases in the last 48 hours prompted officials to try to move as quickly as we possibly could. And as you know, the habit and the perpetual, repetitive pattern of the Biden administration is to not be prepared and not be able to move as quickly as possible and to fail at everything they do, which they are because, as you know, Biden's approval's now in the 20%. So I don't know what to tell you. I see a duck It looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. And it looks like Donald Trump's going to be the next president. You know, what the fuck do I know? I'm just a guy. So listen, all right? Listen, the COVID shit is just that. It's shit. People are getting sick and tired of it. All right. You're giving it to our kids. We're getting pissed off about it. All right. I had to take the fucking shit. I don't feel good about it. I'm scared to take a booster shot. I'm not going to be taking one. And fuck you if you want to force me, because it's not going to happen. I know millions of people feel the same way, and more people are waking up to it. I see people every time I go out. All right. More and more people not wearing a mask. More and more people not giving a shit. More and more people saying, fuck you. I'm going to live my life because I'm an American and I do what the fuck I want when I want. Welcome to America. Ladies, drink free. This is what it is. All right. This is what it is. And if you're from another country and you don't like the way we live our life, go fuck yourself. All right. I don't know what to tell you. And if you're from another country and you love this country, then welcome. Merry Christmas. I'm glad. Be my neighbor. So I don't know where to go from here. All right. When they're trying to tell us that we need to take these vaccines and it's the only way. All right. And then behind the scenes, quietly, we know that they ship these illegal immigrants into all these red states to try to torture them, to try to push them into doing, literally blackmail them into going the way of the Democrat. But also, they hold people hostage. They hold the health of people hostage. All right. They hold their health of people hostage. And it's sick. It's absolutely sick. Think about it. All right. You have treatments out there, HCQ, ivermectin, all right, the monoclonal antibodies, all these different things, remdesivir, whatever, these things that help people, that keep them out of the hospital. All right. That's probably not profitable enough. And that's probably why behind the scenes, the government literally penalizes people, literally screws over entire states and makes it so the states can't get the treatments for the people. And people literally die. They die because Biden is a piece of shit. That's literally what it is. That's how simple it is. That's how simple it is. We have a pandemic of cowards. We have a pandemic of incompetence, and we have a pandemic of literally intergalactic space turds running our government. That's what's going on, and that's where we are. And listen, think about it like this. We're 50 minutes into this episode. All right, 50 minutes in, right on the top of the hour, you, my friend, you could have a sponsored spot right here. All right, you could have a spot right here. We got a couple thousand people a month listening to this show. I want to increase it, get it back up to the tens of thousands before the censorship hit us in January and we had all these other hiccups. As we build it up, we are going to need your help. So come on, sponsorship. All right, you could have a spot right here in American Reveille. All right. You could have a spot right here and you too could be a part of this movement. You want me to sing? You want me to dance? You want me to say something? What product do you have? What patriotic product do you have that people need to hear about? You let me know. All right. James Lane at AmericanReveille.com. That's James Lane at AmericanReveille.com. REVEILLE.com. And talk to me. All right. I'm very, very, very reasonable. We can make something work out, but let's grow together. Let's do it the patriotic way. And let me Ben Shapiro my ass right back into the story. I want to talk to you about Ron DeSantis. Look, this is all political chess. This is all political nonsense. Ron DeSantis pressures Biden admin to let states purchase monoclonal antibody treatments. This is literally the government punishing red states for not going along with the Biden administration's dictator-like edicts, with their dictator-like mandates. And by the way, a mandate's only official if you agree with it. That's why nobody, wherever you're going, no matter where it is, has ever actually been charged or been truly punished for not wearing a mask or anything like that. In fact, you're going to see later in this episode how people that got their vaccines are going to be punished, and it's quite sickening. But states across this country, red states, have not been able to get monoclonal antibodies, have not been able to get treatments for people that are suffering, that haven't gone into the hospital yet, or might end up dying in a hospital because they haven't gotten these treatments, just because he's an asshole, just because he wants to pressure people. He's literally holding people hostage with the lives of Americans, our brothers and sisters. And with how Ashley Babbitt was treated, you can see just how much Joe Biden and the elites care about the lives of Americans. All right. It says here, Governor Ron DeSantis called for the Biden administration to allow his state to obtain more monoclonal antibody treatments as it encounters the Omicron variant of COVID-19. Quote, "We're past the point now where we're able to get it directly from any of these companies," DeSantis said during a press conference. All right, the federal government has cornered the entire market. They took control of the entire supply all the way back in September. DeSantis noted that the administration stopped sending both Regeneron and monoclonal antibody treatments. The department later said it would allow states to order those products from the HHS. You know, the Health and Human Services, the second in command, has that tranny up there. Ugh. The governor's press conference came nearly a week after a Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, sent the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra a letter requesting the federal government restore distribution of monoclonal antibody treatments to the state. All right. They're literally fighting for medical stuff to help people with. All right. Look down in Texas. Look at all that steel for the wall rotting while the government won't sell it to Texas. Do you really think they're going to sell medications? They literally cornered the entire market, bought up all of the Regeneron, all of the monoclonal antibodies, and put it in a warehouse somewhere and said, fuck you to Florida. Fuck you to all the old people. I want you in Boca Raton, Boynton Beach, Broward County, Miami-Dade, Orlando, all of you folks 65 and up down there, you true blue Democrats that voted for Biden. If you know any of your friends or family that have died because they haven't gotten one of these treatments, I want you to look at yourself hard in the mirror because you voted for this. You voted for this. You voted for this schmuck. Sorry to tell you, that is the God's honest truth. The federal government is actively preventing the effective distribution of monoclonal antibody treatments in the United States. The sudden suspension of multiple monoclonal antibody therapy treatments from distribution to Florida removes a healthcare provider's ability to decide the best treatment options for their patients in this state. As Ladapo's letter noted, HHS said in September that it would determine state-by-state distribution of certain drugs. An official reportedly said the move would help maintain equitable distribution. There's that word again. Whenever you see equity, that's the left's version of their own form of racism, both geographically and temporarily across the country. On Friday, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported more than 75,900 new cases of COVID-19 in Florida. This was the other week. That tally raised the 7-day average to 42.6, which is twice as high as it was during the peak of the summer surge when Delta variant fueled the surge of infections to the state. But again, you don't see the same amount of panic, do you? And that's because patriots across this great land are waking up, especially in Florida, especially under great leadership like Ron DeSantis gives. People are waking up to the truth. They know that we have to live with this China virus. We know accountability is eventually coming. And right now we have to be strong and live our lives the best and the freest we can. All right. It says last week, HHS touted the administration's progress in bringing 2 new over-the-counter COVID-19 tests to the market, which is part of a broader effort by the administration to increase access to testing. Biden, though, has come under fire for saying there was no federal solution to the pandemic despite pushing multiple initiatives from the executive branch. In December, the White House touted its deployment of federal personnel to help dozens of states. Quote, to date, we have deployed over 2,000 personnel, including 1,300 clinical providers, surged over 3,200 ventilators, ambulances, and other critical supplies, shipped over 2.3 million courses of life-saving monoclonal antibody treatments, the White House touted on December 2nd. But as we face the potential of a new variant and rising cases during the winter months, today the president will make clear that the federal government will once again be prepared to help. And this, my friends, this was from the other week, and Biden has failed even further. He has not helped. Things have gotten worse. Nobody has tests. Nobody has treatments. Nobody has anything. But thank God Almighty, Omicron is not killing people. Thank God Almighty that the truth is out there. But people don't want to hear about the truth. They don't want to hear about the truth. And that leads more and more people to believe that there really is a mass formation psychosis occurring over COVID-19 in the United States. And that's a big deal. And it's a big deal when the inventor, all right, the patent holder for RNA vaccines, the mRNA vaccines, the gene therapy that they're shoving these COVID-19 molecules in everybody is going to. This guy, he even says that people are going absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. All right. And what does he get for it? What does he get for speaking the truth? What does he get for giving his opinion? He's banned. He's literally banned off of Twitter. All right. People of prominence, the scientists that literally invented these things, are getting told by the ever so wise masses, go fuck yourself. You don't know what you're talking about. We're going to just do what we want and say it's science. That's what's happening. People literally are losing their minds. And that's something we need to talk about, because how long are we really going to live like this, folks? How long are we going to live like this? Are you in fear? Are you in fear for your life? And if you are, is that any way to live? Is that any way to enjoy your time on this planet, on this God's green earth, this beautiful, beautiful rock floating bazillions of miles an hour through the cosmos, through the vacuum of space? I mean, at any moment it could end. All right. At any moment you could close your eyes and never open them again. So is living in fear, living in oppression, is that really how you want to do it? Is that really? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And that's why I think you're listening to the show. That's why I think you're watching this show. If you're a skeptic, at least, for those that are just watching because they enjoy it, I appreciate you. All right. And we're going to try to keep getting more podcasts out more often. All right. But also, if you're a talent, if you have been interested in doing a podcast yourself, if you've got a setup, but you see that it's been difficult to get the word out, why don't you reach out to me, James Lane at AmericanReveille.com, and we might have room for you under the American Reveille LLC umbrella. Think about it. All right. Think about getting your work out to more patriots. They need to hear this. All right. You need to hear about people like Dr. Robert Malone, and you need to hear about it from more people than just me. All right. If you're a writer, if you're a blogger, if you have talent in graphic design, art, animation, reach out to me, James Lane at AmericanReveille.com. Or if you just want to help, if you'd like to donate crypto or just a regular cash donation, we'd greatly appreciate that too. Again, reach out to me, James Lane at AmericanReveille.com, or go to the website www.AmericanReveille.com and reach out to me there. All right. But people, really look around you. Look around you. What do you see? What do you see? I see people trapped by fear. All right. This could literally be like the Patrick Swayze part of the Donnie Darko movie where he's in the auditorium talking about people. I will not be trapped by fear. I won't be scared anymore. I'm going to be brave. Oh, listen. We're in a society run by cowards, and cowards censor words that scare them. Big, scary words. People saying smart things that destroy their narrative. Banned, banned, banned. Hitler did it. The left's doing it right now. They did it to Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Robert Malone was on Rogan, and he told him that the United States is in mass formation psychosis over COVID-19. All right. We're going to talk about what that is. Let's go through the article a little bit. Key mRNA contributor, Dr. Robert Malone, a prominent skeptic of mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations. Let me actually change the little thing up here. Hold on. There it is. There you see him right there, by the way. Who does he look like? It's kind of Robin Williams-y. I've got to say, Dr. Robert Malone kind of has that Robin Williams Jumanji thing going for him. I don't know what else to say. I could say he kind of looks like a monkey, but then somebody's going to call me racist, even though he's a white guy. But, that's the world we're living in. Anyway, key mRNA contributor Dr. Robert Malone, a prominent skeptic of mandatory COVID-19 vaccines, suggested to popular podcaster Joe Rogan, days after Malone was suspended from Twitter, during an interview, that the United States is in the midst of a mass formation psychosis. And if I had a producer, there would be a sound effect right now that went dong, dong, dong. So instead, I'll just do it with my mouth. Our government is out of control on this, Malone said about vaccine mandates in the Joe Rogan Experience interview, which was released over the weekend. And they are lawless. They completely disregard bioethics. They completely disregard the federal common rule. They've broken all the rules that I know of, and I've been trained in for years and years and years. Malone, an expert in mRNA vaccine technologies who received training at the University of California, UC Davis, San Diego, and the Salk Institute, was banned by Twitter the other week. Malone told the Epoch Times last week that Twitter offered no explanation for why his account, which had amassed 500,000 followers, was suspended. A spokesperson for Twitter told the left-wing Daily Dot outlet that Malone's account was permanently suspended for repeated violations of our COVID-19 misinformation policy. Per the strike system outlined here, we will permanently suspend accounts for repeated violations of this policy. Twitter hadn't responded to any Epoch Times request for comment on Malone's suspension. So you see, Twitter, Big Tech, in conjunction with Democrats, in conjunction with Big Pharma, in conjunction with all of these evil entities and global elites, censored one of the creators, the patent holders for the technology of mRNA vaccination, all because they didn't agree with what he had to say. Free speech, my friends, free speech is dead on the internet, on the web. Free speech, my friends, we must get back. I don't know the rest. I just made that rhyme up. Anyway, these mandates are explicitly illegal and are explicitly inconsistent with the Nuremberg Code, Malone said during his interview with Rogan, referring to the set of research ethics principles against human experimentation. They are explicitly inconsistent with the Belmont Report, he said, referring to the 1978 report published in the Federal Registrar regarding ethical principles and guidelines for research involving human subjects. They are flat out illegal and they don't care. And don't think for 1 second he's lying to you. Don't. This is an experimental vaccine. It truly is. Go look it up. It really is. All right. And do you really think they wouldn't experiment on you? All right. Didn't the government experiment on African Americans with syphilis? Didn't the government experiment on people with LSD? Didn't the government experiment on its own people with anthrax? Didn't the government false flag to start Vietnam? I mean, didn't the government do things in South America, Central America, CIA, FBI? I mean, all these things aren't conspiracy theories anymore. So why? Just because it's happening right now, it's not real? Well, what else isn't real, folks? Because it seems that all that Alex Jonesy stuff that we're supposed to believe is all psychobabble bullshit seems to be coming true rapidly every single day. With all my luck, I'll be taking a shit later and a pole shift is going to happen and it won't be the good kind, I promise. Who the fuck knows? But I'm telling you, if it smells like a fish and it stinks like a fish and it's in the river, it's probably a fish. If it's not in the river, you get it. That's the wrong club. Listen, the government is experimenting on people. And they're making a shit ton of money doing it and transferring a shit ton of that money to Big Pharma, who's transferring a shit ton of that money through donations to Big Tech, who's transferring a shit ton of that money through donations to left-wing causes, who's transferring a shit ton of that money and power to the jackboots that will be on all of our throats if we don't do something about it. Towards the end of his interview, Malone suggested that people are in the midst of what's called mass formation psychosis, drawing parallels to the mentality that developed among the German population in the 1920s and 30s. In those years, Germans had a highly intelligent, highly educated population, and they went barking mad. When you have a society that's become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety and a sense that things don't make sense, we can't understand it, and then their attention gets focused by a leader or series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis. All right, just like hypnosis. They literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere. They will follow that person. It doesn't matter if they lie to them or whatever. Several years ago, he said people were complaining the world doesn't make sense and that we weren't connected socially anymore except through social media. Then this thing happened, Malone said, referring to the COVID-19 pandemic. That is how mass formation psychosis happens. That is what has happened here. That's what's happening right now. Folks, you have to see it. You have to look around, because why else would these people believe the big lie that the left-wing media is telling you? Why else would these people believe Joe Biden, a frail, half-dead sock puppet of a human being, lying to your face, literally telling people he got arrested during the civil rights movement, that lying sack of shit, literally telling people that if they don't believe in federalizing voting laws, that they're akin to racists from the Civil War. I mean, seriously, people believe Joy Behar? People listen to Bette Midler? People respect what Cher has to say? Hillary Clinton? Are you out of your fucking minds? Listen, these people are crazy, and mass formation psychosis definitely explains a lot of it. It explains a lot of it. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies themselves, all right? The pharmaceutical companies themselves come out against the things that our own government tells us we have to do to stay safe, because they are lying sacks of shit, because they want to control us, because they want to keep people focused on a singular point. The Pfizer board member right here, look, this Pfizer board member says cloth masks don't provide much protection against the China virus. And they were telling us this during the Trump administration. Fauci even said it. He went back and forth. How many times? How many times did Fauci go back and forth saying masks were good, masks were not good, masks were good, masks were not good, masks were good, masks were not good? That's ridiculous shit that happened. And people bought it. They ate it up. They ate it up. All right? Plain and simple. All right, so now you've got a Pfizer board member saying cloth masks don't provide much protection against the CCP virus. Look at this. Look at this. Pfizer board member Scott Gottlieb said that cloth masks don't provide much protection against the Omicron CCP virus variant. Gottlieb, a former FDA commissioner, said that scientists understand the China virus, which causes COVID-19, transmits via airborne particles, and cloth face coverings are not effective at stopping those particles, as opposed to transmission via droplets. He said this on CBS. So why are places like New York, Chicago, California, Portland, Oregon, all these shitty Seattle liberal places, why are they mandating masks? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense unless they were power hungry and wanted to keep people in fear. They wanted to keep people in fear. All right. Gottlieb noted on Twitter that the Connecticut governor, Ned Lamont, a Democrat, deployed millions of N95 masks to high-risk settings like schools and other locations. So if we're asking the public to assume more individual responsibility to protect themselves and not implementing population-wide measures, we must make sure people can access the tools needed to stay safe. All right? Cloth masks, again, are not going to provide a lot of protection. Cloth masks are not going to provide a lot of protection. But again, nobody listens to any of this. Nobody. They don't. They don't want to hear it. They're just confused. They're just coerced. They're just hypnotized. They're just stuck in this mass formation psychosis. Look, even Joe Rogan is jumping away from Twitter after what they did. After what they did to Malone, after what they did to Marjorie Taylor Greene, banning her. Twitter has become a hellscape. I never thought that I would say Jack Dorsey was a better fit, but this Indian dude that's taken charge is a psychotic socialist. I don't know why I'm trying to say sociopath for some reason, and I'm trying to say socialist at the same time. He's a psychotic socialist. He's out of his freaking mind, and he's literally censoring anybody. It's the internet Gestapo putting their jackboots on the neck of the American people. So Joe Rogan, in a preemptive strike, jumped over to get her. He jumped over to the Republican social media platform Getter, and millions of people, from what I heard, jumped with him. Right? Millions of people jumped with him. Rogan's move to the upstart social media website chaired by former Trump advisor Jason Miller came as Twitter suspended the personal account of Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene after she posted information about the COVID-19 vaccines, and Twitter said it violated its terms and services. So Joe Rogan jumped over there. But I did hear him say that there were problems with Getter, and I've even experienced some problems with Getter, because it seems that no matter what I post, no matter what I put out on Getter, Gettr, nothing comes out. And by the way, if you're looking for me on social media, all the links to my social media are in the comments section below, but you can also search for me at American_Reveille at most places. All right. They just censor the fuck out of me, so I don't come up very often in the search bars. So do me a favor, look very hard, do the due diligence, put the elbow grease in, and find American Reveille on a social media platform near you. But folks, what I'm really excited about is February. That's when the Truth app is supposed to come out. The Truth app is Trump's new social media platform, and I have very high hopes for that. Hopefully Joe Rogan will come over there. Hopefully Dr. Malone will come over there. I'll be over there. I'm looking for a social media manager to run the American Reveille page on the Truth app. So contact me, James Lane at AmericanReveille.com. But we've been doing a lot of talking. All right. We've been talking all kinds of good talk right here on American Reveille. We've been talking about COVID. We've been talking about the truth. I've gone through all of these articles, all of these papers here, talking about the recap from 2021, talking about how many people were vaccinated, what it's done, the effects that it's had on people, positive and negative, the truth about these boosters, what they're doing to children, and what's actually happening. The money that's being moved around. All right. The money that's being moved around. So I found this little press release here. All right. I found this press release that's telling us just how much money is moving around. And it's truly enlightening. It's truly enlightening. I mean, if you really thought for a second the government or big tech or big pharma gave one shit about you, you throw it all out the fucking window after I read you this, all right? Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna are making $1,000 in profit every fucking second. Every second, while the world's poorest countries remain largely unvaccinated. Fuck me. Let's read this, folks. Demand grows for firms to share vaccine recipes and technology as billionaire pharma bosses convene for Big Pharma Davos. That's New World Order shit right there. The Great Reset right in your face. Population control, all with a virus, all with a vaccine, all to line the pockets of the world's wealthiest. Ladies and gentlemen, let's read. New figures from the People's Vaccine Alliance reveal that the companies behind two of the most successful COVID-19 vaccines, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna, are making combined profits of $65,000 every minute. Every minute. Most people don't even make that a year. The figures based on the latest company reports are released as CEOs from pharmaceutical industry meet for the annual Stat Summit, the equivalent of a big pharma Davos, from the 16th to 18th of November. This article came out 2021 back in November, and this is what they were making then. You can only imagine what they're making now. These companies have sold the majority of doses to rich countries, now leaving low-income countries out in the cold. Pfizer and BioNTech have delivered less than 1% of their total vaccine supplies to low-income countries, while Moderna has delivered just 0.2%. Meanwhile, 98% of people in low-income countries have not been fully vaccinated. Maiza Siom of the African Alliance and People's Vaccine Alliance Africa said, "It's obscene that just a few companies are making millions of dollars in profit every single hour, while just 2% of people in low-income countries have been fully vaccinated against coronavirus. Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna have used their monopolies to prioritize the most profitable contracts with the richest governments, leaving low-income countries out in the cold." Despite receiving public funding of over $8 billion, the three corporations have refused calls to urgently transfer vaccine technology and know-how with capable producers in low and middle-income countries via the World Health Organization. A move that could increase global supply, drive down prices, and save millions of lives. In Moderna's case, this is despite explicit pressure from the White House and requests from the WHO that the company collaborate in and help accelerate its plan to replicate the Moderna vaccine for wider production as its mRNA hub in South Africa. Well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen when you empowered Big Pharma to do something to this extent? While Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, described the call to share vaccine recipes dangerous nonsense, the World Health Organization emergency use approval of the Indian vaccine Covaxin earlier this month is clear evidence that developing countries have the capacity and have the expertise. Anna Marriott, Oxfam's health policy manager, said, contrary to what Pfizer's CEO says, the real nonsense is claiming the experience and expertise to develop and manufacture life-saving medicines and vaccines does not exist in developing countries. This is just a false excuse that pharmaceutical companies are hiding behind to protect their astronomical profits, which I actually tend to agree with, all right? These companies are saying that these smaller companies are not trustworthy, they're not capable, but some of them are obviously capable. And why would they give some market share to some little bullshit no-name company in India when the bigwigs could line their pockets at big pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech, and more? All right, that is more likely. And as you see this podcast progress and as we look through some of the articles, you'll see more and more who made the most moolah. All right, folks. It's a complete failure of government to allow these companies to maintain monopoly control and artificially constrain supply in the midst of a pandemic, while so many people in the world are yet to be vaccinated. Now, personally, capitalism's capitalism. It's not my place to tell a company what to do. Based on company financial statements, the alliance estimates that Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna will make pre-tax profits of $34 billion this year. Between them, which works out to over $1,000 a second, $65,000 a minute, $93.5 million a day. The monopolies these companies hold have produced 5 new billionaires during the pandemic with a combined net wealth of $35.1 billion. Haven't you guys noticed that the billionaire number seems to be going up and the richest people in the world seem to have doubled, tripled, quadrupled their money during all of this nonsense? Now, I'm not one for controlling things. I am a capitalist through and through, all right? But at the end of the day, we need to research whether some of these companies have too much power, whether illegal activities are going on. I mean, freedom is freedom, and right is right, and wrong is wrong. But we have to know what direction things are going, all right? We don't have a right to dig into the pockets of billionaires. But at the same time, I want to make sure that Big Pharma is doing things the right way. And if you're listening to this show and you're on the same page as I am, we both know for a fact that Big Pharma is not on the up and up and is not doing things the right way. Capitalism doesn't need to be fixed by being destroyed, but it does need to be fixed because capitalism in a lot of places is not working the way it's supposed to in the United States. All right. The People's Vaccine Alliance, which has 80 members, including the African Alliance, Global Justice Now, Oxfam, UNAIDS, is calling for the pharmaceutical corporations to immediately suspend intellectual property rights for COVID-19 vaccines, test treatments, and other medical tools by agreeing to the proposed waiver of the TRIPS agreement at the World Trade Organization. And they're calling on governments, including the United States, to use their legal and policy tools to demand the pharmaceutical pharmaceutical companies share COVID-19 data, know-how, and technology with the WHO's COVID-19 Technology Access Pool and South Africa mRNA Technology Transfer Hub. Now, here's my problem, folks. The WHO is controlled by China, is controlled by Xi Jinping. His claws, his tentacles are all wrapped up in that ass. So tell me, why should we share anything with the World Health Organization when all that's going to do is benefit China, when all that's going to do is allow China to steal more technology from us? We know that China is our rival. We know what they're trying to do. So why is it that we keep trying to empower them? The only thing that makes sense to me is that the elite folks running these pharmaceutical companies and running all of these health organizations within the government are in bed with China, all the way up, including the president of the United States, puppet Joe Biden. Look at his son, fucking Chinese hookers, being involved in Chinese deals, getting money from China. Joe Biden himself, the brother, the whole family having Chinese investments, Fauci's Chinese investments. They're all wrapped up in the Chinese communist government, including Big Tech. It's one large conspiracy. So when they're all trying to say that they want to help you, remember, look on the screen there. Soylent Green took place in 2022. Just a heads up, it's people. It's always been people. All right, folks, the big scary thing about COVID-19 isn't the amount of people who died. And I'm sorry to all the family members and all the people who did pass away, all the folks with comorbidities, and especially when we didn't know how to treat the virus, especially people that died because they didn't have to, because of governors who put people in nursing homes, or because of governments that didn't allow treatment because they're pushing a vaccine, or even a vaccine that may have killed folks. I'm sorry for all those people. But the real scary truth, the real bad news is all about the money, is all about the Benjamins. It's all about these wealthy people on the front page, how the COVID-19 vaccine injected billions into big pharma and made its executives very rich. That's the real truth right there. That's the real story. All right. This is on Forbes.com. I'm not reading you this off some tabloid site, and I don't give you tabloid sites. And all of these sources that I'm using, everything I'm going through is going to be in the description below. So if you really want to fact check, if you really think I'm full of shit, just go down below. Read all of that. Find the truth for yourself. But folks, I have to push this to you the way it's presented. You need to know what happened. You need to know what direction this goes. You need to know that the cloth masks don't work, that the vaccines have risks, that the health that you do, the decisions you make for your own personal health are yours to make. And you need to take more of an active role in your own life and in your family's life to make these decisions based upon what's best for you and what's best for your family. Because while you sit there and possibly believe the news and think that our government really gives a shit about your health, people are getting very fucking rich. And if you think that's a coincidence, then you're high on crack, and you need to give me Hunter's number because I need some of that stash myself. This is from Nina Burley. This is the Forbes.com editor's pick. How the COVID-19 vaccine injected billions into big pharma and made its executives very, very rich. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, big pharma had been easing out of the vaccine business for decades. By 2019, the major vaccine makers supplying America had dwindled to a handful of large companies. Merck, Sanofi, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, because vaccines are only used once or twice, as opposed to medicines that people take daily. So what's that mean? That means they're not profitable. The scale of vaccination programs also invites class action litigation if something goes awry. The White House needed a whopping amount of money to coax companies to research and test and then produce hundreds of millions of doses. They initially asked for, and Congress rapidly approved, 10 billion doses. All right. Sorry, $10 billion. Excuse me. Ultimately, Operation Warp Speed, OWS, the U.S. government's COVID-19 relief program, would dole out $22 billion to big pharma. The amounts of money were the kinds of sums normally seen in the smaller defense budget line items, but were massive for a public health project. $2.5 billion to Moderna, $1.2 billion to AstraZeneca, $500 million to Johnson & Johnson, $1.6 billion to a small company called Novavax. Only Pfizer opted out of ponying up to the trough at first. It didn't want to devote resources to coordinating with the U.S. government on its own work. But in July, Pfizer signed a $1.95 billion deal to sell 100 million doses of its two-shot vaccine to the United States, enough for 50 million people. It would be the first to reach American arms. The price per double shot, about $40. It's comparable to the price per shot of the flu vaccine. And by February, the government had ordered 300 million doses from Moderna, with its first shipment of 100 million priced at $30 per double shot dose, cheaper than Pfizer, partly because the United States had forked over nearly $1 billion to Moderna research. Moderna's CEO had said the price per dose will be higher for retail once the government contracts phase out. Because the project worked, it may well elude financial investigation. OWS was staffed at every level by pharmaceutical industry executives and their revolving door of allies in the government. They could, if they wished, keep their investments thanks to a special exemption. Brought on as contractors, they were not subject to federal conflict of interest regulations in place for employees, so Operation Warp Speed advisors with connections and investments had to agree to assign some of their COVID vaccine earnings to, where else? The NIH. That's Fauci's baby. But they could wait to do so until after their deaths. OWS was staffed at every level by pharmaceutical industry executives and their revolving door of allies in the government. Let me go down further, sorry. Former Big Pharma executives, Monclef Slaoui, I hope I said that right, sat on the board of Moderna. 13 days after the first massive infusion of taxpayer money into its coffers, which triggered a jump in the company's stock price. Slaoui was awarded options to buy 18,270 shares in the company, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission's filing first reviewed by Kaiser Health News. Those shares were added to 137,168 options he'd accumulated since 2018. He reaped an estimated $8 million when he resigned from the Moderna board. Among the other known connections between Operation Warp Speed and Big Pharma cash, Operation Warp Speed advisor and Pfizer employees William Erdhart and Rachel Harrigan maintained financial stakes of an unknown value in Pfizer. The recipient of nearly $2 billion health and home security contract for 100 million doses of its vaccine, Richard Whitley, an advisor on the vaccine safety panel, is associated with Gilead, maker of the COVID antiviral agent Remdesivir, and advisor Carlo Di Notare Stefani is connected to Teva, the maker of the Trump-approved hydroxychloroquine. Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb and Dr. Mark McClellan, informally advising the federal response, both have seats on the boards of COVID vaccine developers. Even more money was raining down on the company insiders trading on good news releases. Executives at Moderna and Pfizer cashed in on the vaccine, selling shares timed precisely to clinical trial press releases. Timing stock sales like that is neither unusual nor illegal. Columbia Law School economist Joshua Mitz has found that execs in many sectors are up to 3 times more likely to sell their company stock on days when their companies announce positive news rather than on days when negative, neutral, or no news is released. All right? This is important stuff to go through. This is us following the money. So just hang tight and keep following along. This is the real bread and butter. On November 9th, the day Pfizer announced its more than 90% vaccine efficacy, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, all right, that's this guy right up here that looks like Mr. Bean, all right, CEO Pfizer Albert Bourla sold more than half of his holdings, 62%. It was a good day to sell. The positive news jacked stock prices up 15%. Borla was among 7 Pfizer executives who collectively earned $14 million. $14 million from stock sales in 2020. According to data provided by the LA Times, an executive compensation, and corporate governance data firm, Equilar. That's the name of the data firm that reported the 14 million. Not to be outdone, though, Moderna executives made $287 million from Time stock sales in 2020, and it just kept going. In just a few days, in late January and February 2021, Moderna CEO Stefan Bankel sold millions of dollars worth of his stocks. The Trump administration's best and brightest COVID solution, throw public money at private industry with almost no oversight of the contracting procedure, will stand as one of the most audacious efforts in the administration's free market ideological playbook. The full roster of this pharmaceutical windfall club will probably never be revealed. The pandemic crisis offered a challenge that government might have used to restructure the shareholder model of for-profit medicine, a model that dates to the 1980s, and corporate America's turn towards putting shareholders, above the public good. Instead, taxpayer money flowed to a small group of capitalists with almost no strings attached and little transparency. The contracts are redacted, although the Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA requests, are still pending. And these are things that are set to come out in the next couple months, maybe even the next year or two, where big pharma might end up being held accountable. We'll have to see. As cities across the nation started vaccinating at the end of 2020, the media sought out and hailed some of the researchers as heroes. And they are heroes. But most researchers would not cash in. But the NIH's Barney Graham, whose work on molecular protein manipulation is key to the Moderna vaccine, gets paid a government salary. Moderna execs, besides pocketing nearly $1 billion, will still charge Americans for the vaccine. Katalin Kariko, a Hungarian biochemist whose research was crucial in the development of BioNTech Pfizer vaccine, doesn't hold the patent for her discovery, but the University of Pennsylvania does. BioNTech founders Ugur Sahin and Özlem Tariki, however, have profited significantly. Today, the married doctors are billionaires among Germany's richest people. They sold the Germany Ganymede Pharmaceuticals in 2016 for $1.4 billion. And, oh my God, in 2020, the U.S. government spent $18 billion on vaccine research, manufacturing, and logistics, and approved 2 for use at the end of the year. The mRNA-platformed Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, the 11-month concept to emergency approval process, set a record in American vaccine history. Nothing else came close. Remember, it's experimental. That's why it's so quick. Besides the mRNA vaccines, U.S. taxpayers had bet billions on Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, and AstraZeneca. The British company, Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca, like the Chinese and Russian vaccine efforts, were making vector vaccines, a newer vaccine model than the attenuated virus model in vogue since the days of the cowpox, using virus modified so that it can enter the cells but not replicate itself. The vector vaccines use viruses that the body is familiar with, usually an adenovirus that causes the common cold, to deliver the genetic information about specific disease into the cells. And that is the vaccine that most people who call us conspiracy theorists think that they're getting. They don't realize they're getting a gene therapy. They think they're getting a traditional vaccine. Nope, that's what the Chinese and Russian vaccines are made out of. The American vaccines edit your genes. Fan-diddly-fucking-tastic. In February 2021, Johnson & Johnson reported that its single-shot vaccine made from the adenovirus carrying COVID spike protein DNA had a 72% efficacy rate. AstraZeneca produced a vaccine also based on a manipulated adenovirus that was already in use in the UK by February, despite a series of clinical trial mishaps. Novavax, the small Maryland-based company that took $1.6 billion from the U.S. government to produce a protein-based vaccine using material from the soap bark tree as an adjuvant, was bringing up the rear, but promised to have 100 million doses available in the U.S. by summer. And by late 2020, a year after COVID showed up in Wuhan, 200 vaccines were in trials or already in use. According to the WHO, another world record in vaccine history. China's Sinovac was first out of the gate with its inactivated COVID vaccine in June 2020. It's so funny how the country that released the virus is the first to have a frickin' fake vaccine. Anyway, another Chinese company, Sinopharm, started tests in UAE, Morocco, Brazil during the summer and made its first sale to the United Arab Emirates, which began manufacturing it. By early 2021, the UAE was second in the world behind Israel in the percentage of its population that had received a vaccination. And we all know where Israel is now on their 477th vaccine booster shot. The Chinese vaccine dominated the global market, stepping into a soft power vacuum left by U.S. isolationism, there we go, and pandemic mishaps. By early 2021, 3 Chinese vaccines were approved and in use, manufactured by Sinovac, Sinopharm, and CanSino, all either based on the adenovirus model or the attenuated COVID virus. In August, Sinovac announced an agreement to sell 40 million doses to Indonesia. And in February, Hungary became the first European Union country to approve the Sinopharm vaccine for use after the EU faced shortages due to the European Commission's inability to cut a deal quickly with the vaccine markers in 2020. Now, none of you and none of us remember any of this because every news station and every person was being told to be scared to death by a virus that China released, even though they were profiting immensely from this. So you were all being distracted from this. You were being distracted from what was happening around the world. You're being distracted about the different vaccines that were being created, the money that was being made, because you were being told that everybody around you was dying, and if you didn't hide in a bunker, the fucking world was going to explode and your fucking head would fall off, blood would come out of your rectum and your eyes would pop out because COVID was basically, fucking bleed out of your ass disease, when it turned out to not be so bad. All right. I don't know what to tell you. That's the truth. When comparing it to, I don't know, bubonic plague, it's not that fucking bad. I'm sorry to say it like this. All right. And the reason I can say it like this is because at this point, we know for a fact that the government could have done a lot to make it not so bad. All right. Hundreds of millions of people who died didn't have to die if they actually had preventative medicines being allowed instead of trying to push vaccines up everybody's ass. Sorry, not sorry. That's the truth. Let's keep reading. In February 2021, the Russian Ministry of Health reported that a vaccine called Sputnik V, based on the vector platform, had a 91.6% efficacy rate. Mexico immediately authorized it for use. Canada, Turkey, South Korea, they were all testing their own vaccines. And even Cuba had produced a viable vaccine. Even Cuba. All right. And it was reportedly offering it to the tourists. Wow. Bharat Biotech's inactivated virus vaccine was approved for emergency use in India. Meanwhile, the Serum Institute of India, the world's largest vaccine producing factory, was scheduled to manufacture 1 billion doses of vaccine, mostly for poorer nations. All right, to be sure, these endeavors did not all meet the standards that Moderna and Pfizer had set. Few in the Western world fully trust official Russian and Chinese numbers about anything. In January 2021, Brazil announced Sinovac's efficacy at 78%. A week later, a country revisited that to above 50%. And still, it was high enough, though, to meet the WHO's goals. So the swing from high to merely adequate efficacy nonetheless gives us something to pause about. Though inevitably, the race to the vaccine took on a nationalistic flavor. In August, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on national state television that Russia's Sputnik V vaccine, named after the USSR's landmark launching the world's first artificial satellite, plus a V for vaccine, wow, was quite effective. Even though it hadn't made it to phase 3 trial, the Brits took to calling the Oxford-developed AstraZeneca shot the English one. And in Germany, und Pfizer, which recently received early German funding, was called the German one, with pride. But the challenge also spawned some intriguing collaborations, suggesting that the virus could inspire the notion of a brotherhood of nations. Give me a fucking break. More globalist shit. Let's scroll down a little. The flurry of research and collaboration has even led to scientists not just talking about, but being on the verge of testing a pan-coronavirus vaccine made of nanoparticles studded with corona proteins, which would be effective against all coronaviruses 20 years later. Has your penis fallen off due to the experimental pan-coronavirus nanoparticle vaccine? Call 1-800-425-PENIS-BE-GONE to join our class action lawsuit so you may be eligible for a sacred roll of toilet paper. You haven't seen toilet paper in 10 years. Sorry, I was imagining our shitty future. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. All right? I don't know what to tell you besides all of these countries got together. All of these countries started developing vaccines. It's like it may be, just maybe, the world will unite if we create a problem. Maybe, just maybe, if aliens attack, we could all become socialists and work together. Maybe, just maybe, if everybody gets sick and fucking dies of a virus, we can develop a vaccine and become socialists together. This is literally what's been going on for forever. All right. The socialists create a problem and then they want everybody to become socialists so we can fix it with socialism. And it's not going to happen. All right. So here's where you see the real beneficiaries, the real people that profited, the real people that made money, while all of us who are bickering with each other are actually getting pissed on and being told it's raining. All the rich people got a shit ton richer, and all the people that weren't that rich got a lot richer, and all of us stayed poor or got poorer while we're being told that, race stuff. Yeah, race stuff, mean tweets bad, blah, 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 blah. We all fucking suck. Save the trees, the environment, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, let's all go to Davos and create new Epstein Islands and they can go fuck more kids because we seem to, care more about fucking saving the world from pollution and creating electric cars and stopping kid fucking. It's okay. It's okay. And if you really still hate me and you really don't believe me and you really, really just need more fucking proof because you're an idiot, well, hey, let's talk about Fauci a little bit more because, all of that shit came out about his emails where he basically admits to being involved in gain of function research, all the emails that show that Rand Paul is correct, all of the emails, all the different things, all the financial records that came out that show that Anthony Fauci's 10 million 2020 investment portfolio includes Chinese companies. We're literally at war, all right? An ideological war with ourselves and with China. We're already on two fronts. Not good. The guy we're supposed to believe about COVID, the virus released out of an institute for viruses in the virus capital of China, Wuhan, who told us to believe it was from a fucking bat, who makes more money than anybody in the entire government. He's invested in China. I mean, look, it's right there. The connection's right there. Like, what the fuck else do you need? Oh, there's Hunter Biden in the lobby with the candlestick, using it to snort blow out of the Chinese hooker's ass while she writes down writes down U.S. secrets from Joe Biden's little black book while he's sleeping on the chair. Like, what the fuck else do you need to see? There's Fauci. There's his money. It's invested in China. He won't go against China. Bada bing, bada boom. Case fucking closed. No, we're in a pandemic of idiots, a pandemic of fucking cowards. Anthony Fauci's $10 million 2020 investment portfolio, it includes Chinese companies. Dr. Anthony Fauci's reported $10.4 million 2020 investment portfolio included Chinese companies. According to Fauci's 2020 financials, first released by Senator Roger Marshall, Republican of Kansas, and reported by the New York Post. President Biden's top medical advisor held investments in companies in China through a fund named Matthews Pacific Tiger Fund. How, like, seriously, try harder. Try harder. Can you call it like Zhang Wang Tong and Holdings? Michael's Pacific Tiger, Matthews Pacific. Hey, I need you to put my money in Matthews Pacific Tiger Fund. It sounds like the shit you put on your knees that smells like menthol. Breaking. I obtained Dr. Fauci's previously unpublished financial disclosures. Dr. Fauci was completely dishonest about his disclosures being readily accessible to the public, which is why I'm releasing them now. The Matthews Pacific Tiger Fund's fact sheet, published in September 2021, revealed the fund has invested 42.7% of his investors' money in companies in China and Hong Kong. Among the companies listed in the enterprise named Wuxi Biologics Cayman, headquartered in China, the Wuxi Biologics Cayman is in the pharmaceutical business. Wuxi Biologics Cayman website states that the enterprise is the, quote, leading global open access biologics technology platform offering end-to-end solutions to empower organizations to discover, develop, and manufacture biologics from concepts to commercial manufacturing. Doesn't that mean like taking animals and making things out of them, like organisms? Empower organizations to discover biologics, develop biologics, and manufacture biologics. Wouldn't manufacturing viruses be manufacturing a biologic? If I was on Louder Crowder, then I'd have a producer and that little math thing would come by my head, but then I'd get sued and I don't have that kind of money. With a total estimated, Fauci has that kind of money, with a total estimated capacity of exceeding 430,000 liters for biopharmaceutical production planned after 2024 in China, Ireland, the US, Germany, and Singapore. Wuxi Biologics will provide its biomanufacturing partners with a robust and premier quality global supply chain network of viruses and death dealing. I just made that last part up. The fund's additional investments into China and Hong Kong include Tencent Holdings Ltd, Alibaba Group Holdings Ltd, AIA Group Ltd, and Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Ltd. And how much do you want to bet that communists from China run those companies? I would bet everything I had, and I would make a lot of money from winning that bet. Outside of the Matthews Pacific Tiger Fund, Fauci reported $10.4 million in financial investments, including stakes in Atlas Large Cap Mutual Funds, PIMCO's Investment Grades Bond Fund, and the Pax Elevate Global Women's Leadership Fund, which invests into businesses that advance women through gender-diverse boards, senior leadership teams, and other policies and practices, because Dr. Anthony Fauci has a vagina. Fauci's past investment portfolios. All right, his past investment portfolio was only made public by way of Senator Marshall, who disclosed Fauci's 2020 investments Friday after, on a hot mic, the doctor called Marshall a moron during Tuesday's Senate hearing. Dr. Fauci was completely dishonest about his financial disclosures being open to the public. Marshall's statement read, Dr. Fauci must be held accountable to all Americans who've been suing and requesting for this information but don't have the power of a Senate office to ask for it. Because Fauci, my friends, as you know, and if you didn't, now you do, is the highest paid employee of the federal government. The entire government, reportedly raking in more than $400,000 more money than you or I have ever seen in 2020. And upon retirement, the cocksucker will receive a $350,000 a year pension for the rest of he's like 80 something, so short fucking life. Listen, this guy's a shithead. Okay, he's an absolute shithead. He's taking your money and he's lying about things. I saw him on the hot mic call Senator Marshall a moron. He is completely unraveling and unkempt. He got a taste of the power and he wanted it. He couldn't get out of the spotlight. You saw him throwing the baseball like a pathetic little bitch. You saw him fucking wanting to be in the front magazine of everything. You see him in the Senate hearings arguing with a much smarter man, Dr. Rand Paul, and you see him losing his sense of mental stability. Dr. Fauci's day of reckoning is coming. It is coming very soon, and they will talk about him in the history books, and it will be a glorious downfall, my friends. A glorious downfall indeed. And speaking of glorious downfalls, something wonderful to talk about. Something wonderful to talk about right here. The Supreme Court striking down Biden's OSHA mandate 6-3. Now, they might not have struck down the medical side of it, but they struck down the mandate on businesses over 100 employees. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about some punishment that seems to be happening because in companies across the country, all right, companies like Boeing, companies like GE, companies that forced their employees to get vaccinated under these mandates, all right, they are now stating, catch this, and if you're in a big company, you need to tell me in the comments section if you're experiencing this, or email me directly, jameslane@americanreveille.com, REVEILLE.com. I want to hear your story, but people across the country are experiencing now, if you get sick with COVID and you have your vaccine, you will not receive paid time off of work. All right. You will not receive paid time off from work. If you don't have the vaccine, now you will be rewarded. You will be taken care of. You will receive paid time off from work. I want you to tell me if you are experiencing that. I'm hearing stories of that freaking atrocity pour in from all corners of this country. I need to know if that is true, if you are experiencing it. But the Supreme Court the other day striking down Biden's OSHA mandate is just the first domino in a whole hellscape coming for the Biden administration, and glorious news coming to help us during the midterms in November of 2022. Let's read about this for a second. Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court dealt a massive blow to President Joe Biden's COVID-19 policy, striking down his massive vaccine mandate on employers while upholding, his massive vaccine mandate on employers while upholding a smaller mandate on healthcare workers. Though workers can still opt out of the mandate if they have a religious objection or medical concern. And now my theory, and a lot of other people's theories, is that Biden already knew this would get struck down, but he wanted to get as many people jabbed as possible, make as much money, throw as much money into big pharma, big tech, into the pockets of the rich elites as he could before the Supreme Court got wind of it and struck it down to hell where it belongs. Quote, OSHA has never before imposed such a mandate, nor has Congress. The court's opinion in NFIB versus OSHA began. Indeed, although Congress has enacted significant legislation addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, it has declined to enact any measure similar to what OSHA has promulgated here. Administrative agencies are creatures of statute. They accordingly possess only the authority that Congress has provided. The Secretary has ordered 84 million Americans to either obtain a COVID-19 vaccine or undergo weekly medical testing at their own expense. All right. This is no everyday exercise of federal power. It's instead a significant encroachment into the lives and health of a vast number of employees. We expect Congress to speak clearly when authorizing an agency to exercise powers of vast economic and political significance. All right. They struck the whole thing down. People are sick and tired. People are fed up. They've had it up to here with COVID, and they are done. The lie that the left is telling is no longer having hold on the majority of people. The numbers are shifting more and more to the side of the patriot. People just want to be left the fuck alone, and they want to live their lives. All right. We went through all kinds of stuff. And as you can see, the signs point to the money. The signs point to the greed, to the power, to the wealth, to the control, to the executives lining their pockets, the global elites ruling the world and diddling kids, and Joe Biden trying to ride off into the sunset with loaded pockets while his son snorts coke off a hooker's ass on the back of the trolley. Folks, this is human life and experience and nature. Greed can overtake and control people like nothing else. And as you have seen, the money points to that. But Omicron itself may be a blessing in disguise. And I want to end this podcast with this last article. All right. I want to go through this narrative and end it with this last article because this is truly what I believe. This is how I believe COVID ends. I believe COVID ends with the Omicron variant. All right. I've been saying this for a while now. All right. And there was a Wall Street Journal opinion article that came out that said Omicron variant may end up saving lives. And I truly believe it will, because the Omicron variant itself could be the true vaccine to COVID-19. And then when we win in 2022 and we take the White House in 2024, we can hold China and all of these fuck faces accountable for releasing this dirty fear bomb on the entire planet. This is by Rob Arnott. Omicron variant may end up saving lives. Should I try to catch the Omicron variant of COVID to advance the cause of herd immunity? Should I? I've had COVID and recovered, had the Regeneron monoclonal antibody infusion. I had the double jab vaccine. My antibodies are off the charts. With triple protection, I probably won't catch Omicron yet it's spreading like wildfire. Many people with ample antibodies are catching this variant. Importantly, it seldom leads to hospitalization or death. The prudent response to Omicron might be to encourage vaccinated people and even unvaccinated young adults to catch it while protecting the at-risk population. One measure of a pathogen's lethality is the case fatality rate, the ratio of the death toll to the known cases. The 28-day average case fatality rate in South Africa, the likely origin of the Omicron variant, tumbled in the past 6 weeks from 8% to 0.2%. Barely higher than the flu, ladies and gentlemen. Omicron will assuredly confer new complementary antibodies on its victims, providing an additional measure of immunity to more lethal COVID variants. Omicron takes lives, but so does the flu. If antibodies to the Omicron variant are even 50% effective in reducing the risk of death from more lethal variants, those antibodies could save far more lives than the virus costs. From a personal perspective, which is more likely dying if I catch the Omicron variant or dying from another more lethal variant of COVID because I lack the Omicron antibodies? The answer isn't as simple as our policy elite might suggest. No politician will do this sort of cost-benefit analysis. Europe and Latin America are in various stages of renewed lockdowns. As usual, they begin long after cases were already soaring. Sometimes, as in the Netherlands last week, the lockdowns were initiated after daily case and death counts were already climbing. All right. They were already, not climbing. I lost my spot. They were already receding. For the European Union, the US and Latin America, the latest case fatality rate is 0.5, 0.4, and 0.3%, respectively, down from a high of 4 to 7% during the Delta wave in June. If we add in the legions of asymptomatic, mild, and untested cases, the true Omicron mortality rate is likely around 0.2, roughly in line with the seasonal flu, the thing we've been living with our entire lives. Bureaucrats in Europe, Latin America, and some U.S. states seem to be saying, let's wait for cases to soar, then wait a little bit longer until the crisis is subsiding, and then let's blow up the economy after it's too late to save any lives. Lockdowns, though, also cost lives. This is the underreported collateral damage from COVID. And this is very important, so listen up, all right? Pay close attention, my friend. In an October study for the Reason Foundation, my colleagues and I found in the U.S. excess deaths from homicide, suicide, overdose, and accident had amounted to 82,000 between March 2020 and August 2021. During that period, the murder rate roughly doubled, and overdose deaths rose more than 50%. Accidental deaths are also elevated. After all, more fatal accidents happen at home than in the office. Meanwhile, supply chain disruptions, you've seen those store shelves, fear of hospitals, and delayed diagnosis collectively led to an additional 86,000 excess deaths from cancer, heart and lung disease, and stroke. All right? Those are people that can't get in the hospital because they say, oh, we can't do your heart surgery, COVID. In 15 weeks, through December 18th, these excess deaths, none from COVID, have risen by another 56,000. Every death is a tragedy, yet we will all die eventually. So is it sensible to examine death from a cost-benefit perspective? We keep hearing the mantra, follow the science. And true scientific method involves airing opinions and vetting hypotheses, not stifling debate. Beyond the hard science, it also involves asking tough cost-benefit questions while anticipating unintended consequences. So let's explore unconventional answers to end this protracted nightmare. I'm not trying to catch Omicron, but I'm not afraid. Catching it may very well reduce, not increase, my risk from dying from some future COVID variant. And that's the truth. That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. That's the truth, my friends. It may be better just to catch the Omicron variant and reach the actual immunity, find the actual cure, instead of lining the pockets for all these bureaucrats. Either way, your personal health choices are yours to make and yours alone. But I really wanted to do due diligence during this episode. All right, we recapped 2021 and COVID. We talked about where we're at and where we could be. All right, we talked about the FDA. We talked about their approval for COVID boosters for children. We talked about Ron DeSantis. We talked about the monoclonal antibody treatments not being available for states and Dr. Robert Malone and mass formation psychosis. We talked about the Pfizer board even saying cloth masks don't provide protection. We talked about the hypocrisy of the Biden administration, of Fauci, of all these people going back and forth and fucking you with facts. They're not giving you the truth and they're wanting you to eat it up. And the fear is subsiding and people are gloriously waking up, especially when they hear the news that I told you during this, the $1,000 a second, that Moderna, Pfizer, and BioNTech are making off of you, folks. They're stealing your money. The executives are lining their pockets. Fauci is lining his pocket. And even the Supreme Court doesn't agree with the egregious overreaching power that the dictatorship of the Biden administration has tried to put forward. Folks, keep following me. Find me on all social media, American_Reveille. Go to our webpage, AmericanReveille.com, Reveille.com, and bookmark it. We're censored everywhere. Email me directly, JamesLane@AmericanReveille.com, if you have any questions, any concerns, any feedback, any comments. And if you'd like to help make this screen prettier, if you're better at production than I am, please send me an email. Any donations, please go to the donations tab on our website, sign up for the newsletter at our website, and share, tell everybody about the American Reveille podcast and about our publication at www.americanreveille.com. Folks, I'll see you on episode 184. Have a good night.